When a new social trend explodes across the internet, whether it is a viral challenge, a sudden shift in fashion aesthetics, a popular new slang word, or a massive cultural movement, the vast majority of society instantly conforms. They buy the clothes, they repeat the words, and they aggressively participate in the spectacle. But you do not. You sit back in absolute silence. You observe the frantic energy of the crowd from a distance, and you feel absolutely no desire to join in. People around you often misinterpret your silence. They assume you are just being arrogant. They think you are trying too hard to be a contrarian, or they assume you are socially isolated and disconnected from reality. That is a profound biological and psychological illusion. Your refusal to participate in the current social obsession is not a sign of arrogance or laziness. It is a highly sophisticated, often unconscious, neurological defense mechanism. In the next few minutes, we will completely dismantle the myths surrounding your resistance to popular culture. We will explore the profound and hidden psychological mechanics of why forced conformity actually feels like a biological threat to your nervous system. We will dissect the clinical concept of psychological reactance, expose the hidden, exhausting cognitive cost of keeping up with trends, and reveal how your avoidance is actually a masterclass in ultimate energy optimization. Write this down immediately. Your refusal to conform is not a judgment of others. It is a profound act of self-preservation. Let us look at the clinical architecture of human social behavior. First, we must understand the fundamental difference between intrinsic and extrinsic validation. Human beings are biologically wired for tribal inclusion. For thousands of years, staying with the group meant survival, and standing out meant death. Because of this evolutionary programming, the vast majority of people operate purely on extrinsic validation. This means their sense of safety, their self-worth, and their identity are entirely leased from the external world. When a trend appears, they adopt it immediately to signal to the tribe that they belong. The trend is their shield against social rejection. But you operate with a completely different psychological blueprint. You are powered almost entirely by intrinsic validation. You have developed what behavioral psychologists call an identity anchor. An identity anchor is a fully internalized, incredibly stable sense of self that does not require constant external confirmation to exist. Think of your mind as a heavy, iron anchor resting deep on the ocean floor. On the surface of the water, massive cultural storms are raging. Trends come and go like violent waves, tossing everyone else back and forth. But because your foundation is rooted deep internally, the loud, chaotic noise of external trends simply bounces off you. You do not need to wear the trend, speak the trend, or post a photo of the trend to know who you are. The identity anchor holds you perfectly still while the ocean of culture panics around you. This brings us to the second psychological reality: the massive, hidden metabolic cost of conformity. Following trends is absolutely not a passive activity. It requires a staggering amount of cognitive and emotional energy. You have to constantly scan the environment, learn the new cultural rules, adapt your behavior in real time, purchase the new items, and hypermonitor how others perceive your performance. It is an exhausting, never-ending treadmill. A 2024 review in behavioral psychology notes that individuals who constantly chase social trends experience significantly higher levels of baseline anxiety and cognitive fatigue. You, however, view your mental energy as a finite, incredibly valuable currency. When you actively avoid a trend, you are not being lazy or disconnected. You are executing a brilliant strategy of cognitive energy optimization. By refusing to spend your precious metabolic bandwidth on fleeting, temporary cultural moments, you save those cognitive resources for your lasting, meaningful priorities. You protect your intellectual bandwidth. You realize that keeping up with the crowd is nothing more than a high-energy distraction from building a life of true depth. But there is an even deeper, more visceral mechanism at play here. It is a clinical concept known as psychological reactance. Have you ever noticed that when a trend becomes far too popular, or when society aggressively pushes you to like a specific thing, your immediate biological response is to completely reject it? It is almost involuntary. Psychological reactance is a well-documented phenomenon where an individual experiences an intense, automatic motivational drive to resist external pressure in order to protect their sense of autonomy. To your nervous system, forced conformity does not feel attractive. It feels deeply threatening. When culture demands that you adopt a specific behavior simply because everyone else is doing it, your brain perceives it as a subtle attack on your personal freedom. Therefore, you automatically rebel. Your trend resistance is a psychological immune response designed to protect your individual sovereignty. You would rather be entirely alone with your authentic choices than be surrounded by people while wearing a psychological uniform dictated by the masses. This autonomy protection completely dictates your adult behavior and your daily relationships. People who rely heavily on trends for their identity often struggle with true intimacy, because their personality is constantly shifting to match the latest cultural update. You, however, prioritize authenticity over popularity. You might have fewer friends, and you might not be invited to every major social event, but the connections you do have are forged in absolute reality. You prefer deep, meaningful interactions based on shared, timeless values, rather than shallow connections built on the fragile foundation of popular culture. You do not reject social interaction. You simply reject performative social interaction. However, the elite psychological operator understands that this powerful defense mechanism is a double-edged sword. While psychological reactance flawlessly protects your autonomy, it can occasionally isolate you from genuinely constructive social influences. If your automatic, default response is to reject absolutely everything that becomes popular, you might inadvertently close yourself off to beautiful art, helpful technology, or positive cultural shifts simply because the masses discovered them first. This is the trap of blind contrarianism. Rejecting a trend just to prove you are different takes exactly as much energy as following a trend to prove you belong. Both are reactions to the crowd. True freedom is neutral. If a trend aligns perfectly with your internal identity anchor, you can adopt it quietly and without shame. If it does not, you let it pass without a second thought, and without feeling the need to judge those who enjoy it. So, how do you navigate a world that constantly demands conformity? You must stop viewing your avoidance as a social deficit. Your resistance is not a flaw. You must recognize the survivor self who built this internal foundation as a guardian of your freedom. The path forward does not require you to suddenly join the crowd, nor does it require you to isolate yourself further. It requires you to double down on your self-awareness. It means actively cultivating that intrinsic validation day after day, proving to your nervous system that you are completely safe even when you stand apart from the tribe. You must consciously choose where to allocate your focus and your energy, recognizing that every trend you ignore is a deposit into your own intellectual bank account. This is the profound reframe of your psychological blueprint. The ultimate takeaway is that resisting fleeting popular trends reflects a deep, timeless sense of self. Instead of judging yourself for not fitting in, or judging others for desperately trying to, you must simply acknowledge that you operate on a completely different psychological frequency. The ultimate value of your life does not lie in how well you adapt to the cultural noise, but in how deeply you anchor into your own internal silence. Your resistance is your power. If this clinical breakdown resonated with the silent reality of your life, subscribe to the channel. You are not disconnected. You are simply highly protective of your energy. Honor your anchor. Protect your autonomy. See you in the next protocol.